Okay people, welcome back to another Fwoosh overview. Today let's take a look at the Mattel Masters of the Universe Masterverse Revelation Battle Cat. Deluxe Detail Sculpt Articulation. I know this is a little bit older, but I've been kind of messing around with the He-Man and Skeletor, so it's time to open the big bad beastie boy Battle Cat. Now before we get into it, I know this line is not for everybody, and I totally get it. The proportions, the styling, the inconsistency between some of the figures. I said all of that on the weekly before I laid hands on plastic, but after I did and I kind of messed around with them, there's a fun factor to it. And as much as people don't like to hear it, I feel like they're great custom bases. I don't like a lot of the styling to He-Man and Skeletor, but adding things to them and finding different mixtures and combinations of parts and pieces, I kind of like that. Looking at the package, it's what we're seeing with the rest of the line. Just kind of this runic blue Eternian, I don't know, some kind of styling. Inside's a grayer rock pattern to let the figure stand out against it. But looking at Battle Cat, there's all this empty space here, kind of shoved forward. It's not the best use of space, but at the same time, I'm just opening this up, throwing it away, keeping the figure. On the end, nice artwork of Battle Cat. On the back, even more nice artwork. Remove mask for Cringer. On the other end, just Battle Cat fighting Tiger. On the bottom, safety requirements, copyrights, contents, UPC, but let's get this open, see what's going on here. Mattel always trips me up whenever it comes to opening the package. They do these weird angles and stuff, so if you cut the wrong end, you're left kind of digging into it. But we're gonna go through the bottom since that seems to be usually the best option. Well, I say that, to hell with you. Perfect. How many of these things are there? The tail too, give me a break. And out of the package, it's a powerful looking Battle Cat. When I first saw pictures of this, I assumed that I wouldn't like the mask and how everything seems to angle kind of to the back. It's very aerodynamic, while these kind of poke forward, and I guess maybe they had it with the head reared back or something. But when you get it into a natural position, it's not that bad. In fact, I kind of like it. And I talk like this is my first time laying hands on this figure. I actually messed with Veebs when we did a live stream opening the whole first wave, so I have a little experience with this, but having it under the lights and in the comfort of my own home, it's a different experience. That first go around, I felt like the saddle sat a little far back, but now I realize it's between the legs essentially, even with this all the way down here. I guess you could push it forward a bit. Again, better than I originally thought. The armor plate's coming down, covering his ass down to his tail. The same kind of plate work coming up over the neck. On the front, you have your nose guard. You have these two. I don't know if these could be for attack, like they're a different material or something used for stabbing, but you also have this spike up on top for ramming speed. The base plastic for the helmet and saddle is this red color, but they've also come in with a darker red for the seat of the saddle, and then orange colors for this bead, this horn right here, the horn here, and then these spikes. And I said it during the live stream, and I'll say it again. These straps to hold the saddle on, they remind me so much of the vintage toys. You know, He-Man's harness, Battle Cat's saddle back in the day. You'd get it there, and then as you moved it around or just did things with it, they'd loosen up, and then the saddle would start to go back and forth. I don't know if they were purposely trying to replicate that, but it's nostalgic feeling, but at the same time, it's kind of frustrating. I think in a perfect world, if I decide to never take the armor off again, find where I want it to be and fuse it, glue it, something. The helmet, on the other hand, is designed fantastically. It's a nice snug fit because of the sculpted inside. The ears have their own position along with the nose down there, and once you find that spot, it snaps on and it's not falling off. My favorite thing about the helmet is they painted the eyes on the helmet itself, so you don't have to worry about lining it up with the eyes. The eye of the tiger, thrill of the fight. So Battle Cat always looks like he's kind of pissed off. And with it black, it looks like they're kind of set back. Okay, we're gonna take the armor off and just go through the base figure. That's easy enough to pull off. How muscly that is. And then this comes off, and the package says, here's Cringer, which I guess it works, but I am so locked into the thought of Cringer being smaller than Battle Cat. Again, this isn't as bad as I originally thought, or the pictures we saw when these were first solicited, but at the same time, if the cat's this big, it's got to have some battle to him, at least for me. But if you're looking for a big-ass cat sculpt and want to do a repaint into regular colors or black or whatever, the sculpt itself does work, for the most part, as a realistic-looking cat. I mean, if this was stripped down, there may still be some cartooniness to it, like the size of the eyes or, you know, how the teeth work. But there is also a lot of realism, like the fur sculpted on, the hairs, the tail has a little tuft on the end of it, paws on the bottom of the feet along with big old claws. I think it's in a base kind of pale green with these orange stripes painted on top of it. And there's a different green for the here and the mouth and the inside of the ears, around the eyes, some black for the eyebrows and the outline around the ears, and then that lighter green again down here on the end of the tail. There's also a different green painted for the nose and the bottom of the paws, and then there's the black again for the claws. I have found that it is kind of a pain in the butt to get all 4 feet down on the ground, dealing with 4 limbs all at the same time. And oddly enough, moving into articulation, we've messed with a couple of animals almost in the same shape recently from Hasbro with fantastic articulation. And I have to give props to Mattel here because they did a great job on, well, I was going to say Cringer because he does have the Battle Cat. The mouth does open, showing the teeth and the tongue and red in the mouth. Right behind the head is a ball joint that goes down and up and side and side. Neck going into the body is a hinge that goes down and then up. So with all that together, it can look slightly up, mostly down. At the front leg shoulder, I don't know animal anatomy, but that's on a ball joint too, so it comes out and then forward. Does it go all the way around? It gets really taut about right there. Hinge and swivel at the first joint goes slightly past 90. Then that rotates. Hinge at the foot goes back, goes forward, and then a forward-facing pin for rocker. For the torso, there's a ball joint here. Gets beautiful side to side. And not bad up and down either. It's hula hoop action. You can rotate too. Towards the back legs, there's also a ball joint there. So all together, can hunch, can stretch, can turn. Nice movement. Spine does like to get out of alignment if you turn it too much. And then for the back leg, essentially the same as the front, just with an extra joint. So ball joint goes out and in and around and all the way up, and yeah. Then there's a joint here that goes back that far, straightens all the way out. Below that is another joint that straightens out or kicks forward. Ankle, back, forward facing pin for rocker. And then there is a hinge and swivel at the tail. You can bring it all the way up, rotate it if you want it curled down for whatever reason, but it mostly goes like this. Going into accessories, we're essentially coming right back around to the saddle and helmet. You have to go to battle, Cringer. Get your clothes on. And then I love that. Boom. So instead of accessories, we're gonna put rideability here. And this is probably one of my bigger problems with this figure. Or is it my problem with He-Man? Now I have switched out to the harness with the classics, the head with an Origins, just to give it a bit more, I don't know, I like this look. He-Man has a problem actually being able to ride Battle Cat, and it all comes down to the loincloth. Don't get me wrong, it's not impossible, but it never looks perfect, which I get, it's a toy, so it's not going to be perfect, but I don't know, he just kind of straddles there, and there's no way of holding on. Well, another problem is Battle Cat is wide as hell, so to even get it, well, I guess let's try this. You get his legs spread out enough to go around him, and then it's just hovering because of the loincloth. Maybe hide it with the shield. Look away from my crotch! Doesn't look too bad with classics He-Man, but again, He-Man's just not meant to straddle. Are we missing Stradlor, mighty master of cat riding? That's just too big. With the vintage crotch just being a crotch and not hanging down, he can actually sit on it. That probably looks the best, but that's a big old Battle Cat for Origins. Size-wise, Battle Cat measures about 14 inches from the tip of the nose to the curl of the tail. And then top of the helmet is about 6 3/4, while the highest point back here on the back of the saddle is about 7 1/4, about somewhere in there. But I also have the legs in a natural position. If you straightened them out, it'd be a little taller. Seems appropriately sized for the Masterverse He-Man, and not too shabby with the classics He-Man. And then that's just huge. Here it is with the Hasbro Dungeons & Dragons Guinevere, and the Hasbro G.I. Joe Classified Series Timber. While it's bigger, it still looks good with the Mezco 1/12 Collective Marvel Lockjaw. And it's comparable with the Star Wars Black Series Dewback, which, if we're being honest, also has the doesn't sit quite right on top of it problem. Since we're in Star Wars, here's Jabba next to Battle Cat. Ooh. So at the end of the day, it's a big bastard battle cat. Does it have its problems? Sure, but I mean, it's hard to capture it on camera with pictures, but just the posability, even with the armor on it, the way it curves back, the legs spread, it just ready to pounce. I doubt I'll ever have them in cringer mode, you know, just kind of lounging around, but the articulation allows for that lounging around or, you know, being lazy or scaredy cat. Maybe in the future they'll release a smaller one that's a little more lithe and has kind of a more cartoony look to his face. But until then, this is Battle Cat. And now that I've messed around with it in the privacy of my own home, I don't know what that has to do with it. I'm messing around with it, getting used to the style of it. I really like this. But again, I can understand why some don't. There's a stylization, and especially with the figures. They're small heads, weird. They're weird. But that may be why I kind of like them, kind of an offshoot from my classics, especially the Filmation line. That's my line. Just messing around with this for a while. I wish his head would turn just a little bit more. That would make this shot I'm trying to get perfect. Perfect. I didn't mean to do that, I swear. But if you enjoyed the overview, comment, like, subscribe. Much love to the plus. If you're interested in seeing videos early or in a position to help out the channel, patreon.com. But wherever you may be watching this, I'll always catch you on the Fwoosh. You know what? I went through this whole thing without even thinking about the possibility of a panther on this body. I gotta think they would change a couple of things, mostly the face, because they'd have to make it a little bit more mean, right? And no flocking. You don't even bring that up.